In this video, we're going to look at one of the other 5 metabolic markers, which is your triglyceride level. But what are triglycerides? Well, they are the most common type of fat circulating in your blood. And it's not all bad. The body will use some of that for energy. So why do we want to measure it? And why is it that important? Well, if you've got too high a concentration of fat in your blood, that can lead to strokes. It can lead to diabetes type 2. It can lead to heart disease. It can lead to so many different things. So we want to make sure it's within a good range. You can't manage what you can't measure. It's another one of those great 5 measurements that will indicate how my internal body is working right now. The question is, how does fat get in your blood in the first place? For years, they thought, even medical circles, that it must come from the fat you've eaten. I mean, that'd be logical, wouldn't it? It'd be logical that the only way you'd get fat in your bloodstream must come from the fat that you've eaten. But I'm here to tell you that's not the case. And it's not the case for this very simple biological reason. And that is, when you eat food, as you know, it breaks down into the 3 macronutrients, your fat, your proteins, and your carbs. But once you've eaten it, as it comes out of your digestive system, out of your intestines, into your body, fat goes down a different motorway, if you like, a different highway than your carbs and your protein. And it goes in such a way that it would kind of be impossible for that fat to get into your bloodstream. And in fact, this has been one of the biggest problems with science, one of the biggest learnings for years. You know, from the 70s, they were going, don't eat saturated fat, because you find saturated fat in your arteries and it's causing heart disease. A lot of people still believe that today. That's why you see 0 fat here and 0 fat there. It's why that traffic light system is so incorrect at the moment, because it measures fat and it even breaks out saturated fat. But we now know saturated fat itself is not the enemy, and not from what you eat. If the saturated fat that clogs your arteries isn't from the food you eat, because it biologically can't be, where does it come from? So you've just had a meal. You've had a small meal, your body burns off what you've eaten as energy, fine. You're not putting on weight, everything's great. But you've had a meal, loads of carbs, a McDonald's, whatever, a couple of cans of Coke, a pack of crisps, or even things in the past we used to think were healthy, a big baked potato, a bowl of rice. But you've had more than you need. So what happens now? Well, you've got to get rid of that stored energy. They weren't fat, they were carbohydrates, that baked potato, let's say, but you've had too much of it. So your liver goes, what do I do with it? How do I get rid of it? So through a process called the Novo Lipogenesis, meaning the creation of new fats, the liver turns any excess into fat, into triglycerides, saturated fat. And it then gets rid of it. You'll use a bit for energy in the bloodstream, but it'll take it and it'll store it in your fat cells. But here is the important bit. Yes, saturated fat clogs the arteries. We know that. It can do. Not always, but it can do. But that saturated fat from the arteries did not come from the fat you ate. It came from the fat that your liver had produced. And what we're trying to do with triglycerides is measure how much you've got floating around your bloodstream. And it's a good indication. I mean, you know, we do blood glucose tests. They will change quite quickly, like hour by hour, depending, or half an hour, depending on what you've just eaten. But your triglycerides, they're more reflective over, you know, days and weeks rather than minute to minute. So understanding how much fat is in your body, your triglycerides level, super, super important. If it's too high, for most people, I'll give you a quick caveat in a second, but for most people, high triglycerides equals problems down the line, more chronic disease down the line. But the good news, because you can measure it, you can also improve it. If you improve it, your chance of chronic illness starts to disappear. But as I said, there's a few exceptions. And this has only just come about recently in a lot of the conferences I've been going to, in recent sort of medical articles. They start to realize there is a subset of the population, those that are athletic, that are on a ketogenic diet. So in particular, super lean people that are fit and healthy on a ketogenic diet sometimes, bizarrely, also have a high triglyceride level. And it's not believed at this point that for that subset of the population, it's a problem. But for the rest of us, we want to get that triglyceride level down. And if you get a measurement from your doctors and it says mmol, that's millimeters per litre, that's just basically the concentration in your blood. If you can keep it below 1.3 millimoles per litre, you're doing great. This is measured normally also like blood glucose when you're fasting. Below 1.3, great news. The lower, the better. Below 2, doing okay. 2 to 3, yeah. Over 3, repeat that test, a bit more frequently. If it stays over there, then we need to be looking at making dietary and lifestyle changes because you really want that number to come down. What's the quickest way to do it? If the fat that you eat doesn't get into your bloodstream, it's not really about reducing fat. So don't go and get your triglyceride read with your doctor and he goes, oh, you've got a lot of fat in your blood and think you've got to reduce the fat that you eat. No, it's reduce the carbohydrates, reduce the sugars, right? Because that, through de novo lipogenesis, it's what's driving the fat in your blood. Number one, by a long shot with triglycerides, is reduce your carb and sugar intake.